Hey, what's up, YouTube? I'm back. The monster, me, the monster, I'm finally back, and I'm kind of back from my vacation. Ian is not here right now, so I decided it's been a while since I've done any kind of rant. It's been a really long time since I've done a rant, and I found out about something about the other day which really fascinates me. And that something is I actually found out from watching a video from The Resident that Mark Twain's classic book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, has actually been re-released, and now it's censored. Now, what I mean by that is that apparently the word nigger has actually been erased from the book, and it's now replaced with the word slave. What are you thinking? Okay? Now, before anybody starts bitching, I'm not a racist, okay? Alright? So, I mean, I've got plenty of friends from plenty of other races and ethnicities. But honestly, when you take a piece of classic American literature and you alter it to be more appropriate for all of the uncomfortable, insecure soccer moms and all these other Bible-humping, cheerleader type people and all these preppy ass bitches, that's unacceptable to me. Okay, now let me talk about the book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. It talks about a friendship between these two poor southern boys named Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, who you may know from Mark Twain's other book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Now, the way that the word nigger is used in the book is that there's this character in the book named Jim, who is a slave, and he has a very deep personal relationship between Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. Now, Mark Twain, he uses the word nigger as a sort of a word that establishes a personal relationship and connection between these characters. Okay? Let me ask you all something. Why do we read books that are old? Books that came out like 60 or 70 or even 100 years ago? Why would we read them in the dialect and the vernacular that was used back in the time that the book came out? So that we can get a better understanding of the time period that the book came out in. For example, look at The Outsiders by T.S. Eliot, I think her name was. I mean, that was a book set during the 60s. And it was a book about, like, all these young adolescent 60s gangster kids, you know, who wore, like, the leather jackets, who had really gelled back hair and stuff. And they rode in, like, these shiny, like, 60s Corvettes and stuff. That book, it was written during the 60s, and it was written with a whole bunch of slang words that were used during the 60s. Now imagine if someone took that book, they re-released it today, and used a whole bunch of slang words that were used today. Like, say for instance, it was like The Outsiders was translated into like a gangster rap version. You know, and they use the word cracker, and they use the word playa and pimp and hoe and all that bullshit. It would be horrendous. It would be a fucking felony. Because you can't take historical text and alter it to be understood and to be easily accessible to today. Imagine if the Canterbury Tales, written by the legendary Geoffrey Chaucer, imagine if it weren't written in the actual language and dialect and speech. Well, it's called vernacular, but imagine if it was written using modern-day slang and modern-day language. It would be an atrocity, because those books are written that way to sort of be like a time machine. Imagine the movie Back to the Future, you know? Whereas like, the author of the book is like Christopher Lloyd's character, Doc Brown. And you're Marty, you know, and you're fixing to ride in the DeLorean to go back in time. That's basically what an old book is like. It's basically like a time machine. Because when you open up a book and you see all that old-timey, out-of-date dialogue and all these really old slang words, that puts you in the mindset of someone who was alive during that period. And that's why I think... Now, some of you may think I'm making a real big deal out of this. It's just like, oh, well, Monster, they only changed one word out of the entire book. Well, I mean, it's not just that book that I'm talking about. It's what may happen in the future. If any of you have ever played the video game Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, there's one point towards the end of the game where, like, the Patriots, which is like the big omnipotent organization that runs America, they have so much power and they have so much influence that they're able to alter the flow of information and actually change facts. They have the power to literally change birthdays. They have the power to alter history books. To, like, imagine, okay, when was John F. Kennedy killed? He was killed on, like, November 28th, I think, of 1963. What if someone actually changed that to, like, January 1970, and that became a fact? There would be a huge uprising, because there are people who are alive during that time period who were there when Kennedy got shot, and they actually saw it happen with their own two eyes. Okay? We cannot start to change history just to make it more comfortable towards us. Imagine if they rewrote the Bible and they took out all the baby killings, and they took out, like, all the people getting burned alive. Imagine if, like, the story of Noah's Ark. Imagine if God didn't flood the earth and kill all those people. Imagine if it was like, imagine if Noah had managed to build an ark big enough to fit the entire world's population on it. That's why I'm making this video, because we cannot start to change history. Okay? Look into my eyes. This has got to stop while we can make it stop. I am very much against altering old literature stories, okay? Imagine if someone re-released all the history books and, like, they never talked about the Holocaust. Okay? The Holocaust was a real event. It really happened. Okay? The movie Schindler's List, That really fucking happened. Okay? You can try to ignore it. You can try not to think about it. But the fact will remain that it really fucking happened. I think all of these insecure college professors, they need to fucking wake up. They need to put on their fucking big boy pants and realize that bad things have happened in the world. Okay? We can try to censor entertainment, and we can try to censor the news all we want, but that will not change the fact that it really happened. And if we try to censor it, and we try not to show people, we're only denying ourselves of the necessary knowledge to go on living. Now I know you're all thinking, wow, that's quite an exaggerated point just because they changed the word around in Huckleberry Finn. I'm not saying all this is happening now. I'm just saying that if we change one single word from a nearly 200-year-old book, then what's to stop people from doing that for a whole bunch of other old literary sources and historical text? Imagine if I'm going back to the Bible again. What if they rewrote it so that, oh, Jesus wasn't crucified? Oh, he died of a heart attack. You can't do that. Because Christians, people who go to church every Sunday, they always recite the fact that Jesus was crucified. Jesus had to die. If he didn't die, then we would all be bound and destined for hell. Jesus, he needed to die. He needed to be crucified so that he could enable us regular human beings, to be able to be forgiven by God, so that we may have the opportunity to join him in paradise. I've said my part to stop this new developing movement towards changing history. I want you to do the same. Okay? We cannot allow people to start making alterations and changes to all these old stories. We cannot allow that to happen. Now, for all these college professors who take the time to actually translate all this text, into a modern day language so that we can understand, that's okay. But if they try to take that translation and they try to make it the new status quo, and they try to make the old version obsolete, and they try to completely replace it, that's crossing the line. Because the old version needs to be accessible so that people can be completely aware of the past. There's an old saying, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Alright? That's my rant about the changes made to the story of Huckleberry Finn. Please leave a comment and tell me what you all think. Alright. Later.